I think it's funny. Like we're on episode 8 now when this airs. I think it's
Something like
this was
that.
8 or 9, and we still haven't had Nick for one.
We haven't.
We've had Robin 3 times. Robin 3.
We've had
Welcome to
CryptTeaze Family Fun Night. Hello, everybody. My name is Lucas Liner.
I'm Chase Will.
I'm Monty Adams.
I'm Robin Willett.
And I'm James Gregory Mall or Amber Stone.
And welcome, one and all, to CryptTeaze Family Fun Night. We have, yes, raise them up if you got them. Whatever you're drinking, it don't matter.
Raise your bomb.
We had a little bit of a beer. I would say that whatever thing is. Today we're talking about. There's a lot of talk about cult films and B movies and all that kind of thing on CryptTeaze. This, you could argue, for being the cult classic. It is the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yes.
And our special guest this evening is somebody who knows this show, knows this movie entirely too well. That is not a bad thing. That's why I asked her to be on here. From Stone Productions, from Toledo's Drags, we have James Gregory Mole, known to some as Amber Stone.
Yay!
Hello. Hey, everybody.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good. I couldn't decide who to be, so I decided to be both people today. So,
Yeah.
At first, I thought that was like the spiral from Saw you had on your earring.
At first glance, it looked that
it's
way.
like a big, huge. Yeah, it's just a big, obnoxiously huge earring. That's all. Just and all the glitter.
That's cool.
And if that is not drag, I don't know what is. Just making sure that's not somebody trying to. Okay, cool. So, if you don't know the movie, there is no helping you, I don't think. But it is a 1975 film. Well, it started as a stage play, and perhaps Amber can clue us in on some of the more theatrical, not cinema, factoids about that. The film itself we're talking about today, 1975, screenplay written and film directed by Jim Sherman. Of course, the play was written by Richard O'Brien, who also features as Riff Raff.
The best character, arguably, next to Frankfurter.
Agreed.
I get no argument
Agreed.
from me then.
Same.
What's everybody's favorite song? Because we got to start there, because there's so many cult classic songs in the show. It's hard to pick just one, but I'll make you do it anyway. Lucas, do you have one?
If I had to pick one, I think it would be just because it's ran in my head so much, and I don't want to go with Time Warp or Sweet Transvestite because those are the easy picks. So I'm gonna be a little bit of hipster. But I'm going to say the first part of the first show, Rose Tint My World.
Ooh. You know, that one wasn't actually on the soundtrack when I bought it. I had to go back and buy a different soundtrack. For some reason, they skipped over that one.
Interesting.
I don't know why. Like, some versions of the soundtrack just completely throw that song out.
So Japanese, because one time I had an album like that where I got a whole vinyl and it was excluding one song for no real reason in particular.
That's weird.
Monty, do you have a favorite?
I can't really pick one. I mean,
Do it.
you're gonna have to give me some time to think on that. That's a really tough decision.
I'm going to say Hot Patootie. That's my favorite. It's because Meatloaf really struggled to make that song flow, and the way he did it actually worked. And I admire that.
Damn it, Janet is mine. Love it.
All right, Amber, this one has to feel like picking like your favorite child. But what would your favorite song from Rocky Horror be?
Well, picking my favorite child would be a lot easier, actually. Or a lot, I don't know. Whatever. No. My favorite song from the show, I love all of them, but it's a song that not many people are familiar with from the film unless you've seen the UK version, and it's Superheroes.
Yes, that is the thing we should point out. A lot of the home video releases from the 2000 DVD, the 20th anniversary, had an extra song before the credits, and that was Superheroes, where after the after the castle's been launched into the stratosphere and all that. But that is one of those deep cuts, but I love it. So
Lucas,
okay,
we're
so
gonna get a Kickstarter for your internet.
Is it really that bad?
I was
Yeah.
gonna ask if you could repeat what you just said. Like, 'cause most of it got lost.
Fuck. All right.
I heard most of it.
We're doing amazing, sweetie.
Let's just say if we had to drink every time your internet acted up, we'd hit the floor in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, hit the floor, bitch. There you go. Did it hash? Oh my god. But yeah, Superheroes was from originally on the UK print of the film. Depending on what home video release you have, it'll be on yours or it won't be. The Blu-ray I have, which is the 40th anniversary, has both versions. You can switch between them. It has the well, this one has a bunch of the callbacks and all that on it. So have any of us, I know the answer for some, but I'm going to ask everybody, who has been to a screening of the film, like the live experience of Rocky Horror?
It's on my bucket list, but I never got to go.
Same.
It was supposed to be this past summer, but fucking COVID ruined that.
Yeah.
I've been to more than I couldn't even tell you how many times I've seen the like shadowcast done of it. Like started going when I was probably not old enough to, and then I've ever since.
Yeah, it didn't really occur to me until I think the last couple of years. This isn't a kid's show at all. Like, I watched this as a kid. I didn't realize how filthy it was.
That explains it.
we can dive into this like later or whatever. But we have our live production that we do at Stone Productions. We've had people bring their children, and I'm just at the door. I'm like, oh gosh, do you know what you're about to watch?
You're gonna learn some things, kid.
You're about to see some.
You're about to see some things.
Well, at least you bring him to the show Hair or something like that. You'd get a real eyeful.
Right.
Did anybody watch the sequel to this movie, by the way?
No.
Not the remake,
I
the
haven't.
sequel.
I
Yeah,
have
yes.
not
Shock
actually.
What did you think of it?
So, Shock Treatment. It was. I don't know. It's like love-hate. Like there's songs that are super catchy, but then it's anything you think about Rocky Horror that doesn't make sense, times that by 5.
Well, Rocky Horror, what I like about it is you can't really point out the plot holes because it's so enjoyable. Like, you don't really get caught up in plot holes. The sequel, on the other hand, it's too many. It's like you only notice the plot holes.
Yeah, exactly. And like the whole idea of like, obviously the sequel was much lower budget. I mean, that's believable, but they only had 3 people in the original cast. They had Riff, Magenta, and Columbia, who did not play those characters.
Mm-hmm. And what about the recent, well, I wouldn't call it a remake, but a reimagining, I guess. Was that fair to call it that, reimagining?
Yeah, I suppose.
I've called it
seen-
reimagining.
Reimagine. I mean, remake is a tricky word, especially in the horror world. But I guess it's. I could make a case for it, but I have not
Revised edition.
Who has seen the new version?
It was weird. I've seen it. I watched it. I wanted to give it a fair chance, but I feel like with the show like Rocky Horror, it's like something like Steel Magnolias. You know, it's so classic to redo it is kind of like this shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
I agree on Steel Magnolias too, because that movie is just you just can't picture not Sally Field and not Julia Roberts and not like Dolly Parton.
I'm gonna disappoint you guys. I've never seen Steel Magnolias.
I haven't either.
I just pulled a Lucas. I just pulled a Major Lucas. Major Lucas.
Of course, I've seen it.
Gonna drink my beer and not say a word. So I think part of that too comes down to the casting of the remake. Is it's just some of the choices were no. But the thing with this movie, the casting, is the only two people we really hear about, unless you're a diehard Rocky Horror fan, are Susan Sarandon and, of course, Tim Curry.
Is it true that Tim Curry actually denied being in this movie for the longest time? That when people brought it up, he said, "You're mistaken. That wasn't me."
He tried to deflect it, was what I could find. He was kind of like, "Oh God, I don't want to talk about it." I don't know why. That's his business. Whatever. I mean, put it this way: Peter Hinwood, who plays Rocky, who plays the creature, model. He had very little acting experience. He had no singing experience. I was seeing there was like an Australian session singer that overdubbed his lines in that when he sang. And looking at his filmography, it's bare bones. But looking at some of the trick section on IMDb is the best thing. I will say that much. Looking at some of the Woody cast had the money been in the right place or whatever. Looking at let's see, Mick Jagger for a while was considered to be Frankenfurter.
Oh man, I need to see that. I need to get one of those alternate reality machines from Rick and Morty, just so I can go and watch that.
Full disclosure, I watched the shit out of that just because I think he'd sell it well enough.
Yeah. And Mick Jagger was a performer. That was his main thing. He was a great singer, but he was a performer.
Mhm.
Oh, absolutely.
He would have played the shit out of that role.
There were talks to have Vincent Price, criminologist, which can you freaking imagine?
Oh my!
Vincent Price.
That would have been cool.
And again, he has just delivery. It would have worked on too many levels. The one that got me, and I'm still trying to figure out how I feel about it, was originally it was not considered. Meatloaf wasn't the first choice for Eddie. They were trying to get Elvis.
Oh wow!
Wow.
Hell yeah.
I don't know if that would have worked or not. Which Elvis we talking about? We talking about
he probably would have had a bigger role if he was in it, though.
Well, depending on which Elvis, it might have literally been a bigger role.
Well, it was
there were two very distinct Elvises.
They shot in 1974, so I mean, do your math there.
Oh, that was nearly dead on toilet Elvis then.
Oh boy.
He's like, I need a drink.
Is that inappropriate?
I need a drink.
Someone doesn't like Elvis in the house.
I mean, I'm not really fond of him either, but that's another story. So, Amber, maybe you can clue us in with this, but what does Rocky Horror really translate to the screen like it does from the stage? I mean, is there a superior one or the other, or what's your opinion?
I'm so you're asking what's more superior, the stage version or the movie?
That's how about what is getting.
Okay. That's really hard to say. I would say for the general audience, as far as entertainment goes, they're gonna want the movie just because it's such a classic. The stage version it's fun because I don't know in the original, but I know when they redid it on Broadway, and then when Stone Productions started doing it, we incorporate the live aspect. We encourage people to yell stuff at us and throw stuff at the stage. We want the movie experience, but you're going to get the full show with the orchestra and rock band and everything.
I need to go to one of these.
I'm just yeah.
Well,
I went to one.
As soon as COVID, I was just saying, as soon as COVID hits it, we could, do it again. We canceled it this year. There was another company who did try to do it, and they did it all safe and everything. But Rocky Horror is not a show that you can do with 6 feet apart and masks on. I'm sorry.
I agree.
It's really not. It's not one of those.
Part of the charm of the live show seems to be being uncomfortable, and I don't think you can be uncomfortable with people 6 feet from you. It's too comfortable. It's too much comfort.
Every time we cast new people in the show, we always have this like exercise where I'm like, okay, you're gonna get real close to someone and we're gonna just have that trusting, intimate moment, because you're gonna have to do it in front of like 600 people. So if you can't do it in front of the 15 of us, we might have an issue.
That's smart. So I noticed that way for like a lot of stage productions too, is like being willing to not just talk in front of people and memorize your lines, but also spatial boundaries are almost non-existent in theater. Like you have to be real comfortable changing backstage in front of people, first of all, but like being close to somebody on stage too. Like if you can't do it for 5 seconds, how the hell are you gonna do it for an hour and a half?
Right. And then also with Rocky Horror, I mean, as everyone knows, it's familiar with it. Not only do you have to be comfortable changing backstage, you have to be comfortable getting in your underwear half naked on stage in front of the live audience.
Yeah.
Between that and the corsetry, especially in the floor show, that probably, I would imagine that's kind of a point of hesitance for some. And like, I want to do this show, I don't know about that. Of course, if they could find one big enough for me, then maybe. But that's another story for another time. Yeah,
it can be done. Trust me, it can be
done. I believe it. Just reading up on some of the behind the scenes, because this movie, it was a flop when it came out in theaters. Generally speaking, it just did not do well. It wasn't on a high budget anyway. I mean, it was 20th Century Fox on a budget of, I think it was like 1.2 million, which would be a lot of money today, but back then was like, I'm not sure, adjusting for inflation or anything like that. But just seeing some production and like this, it definitely has that family. What am I trying to say? Well, aside
What are you trying to say, Lucas? What
am I trying to say? Look, I had to rush here to make sure I got it on time, so like bear with me. This could be a rough one.
It wouldn't be fun if I didn't give you shit.
This is true, asshole. But just seeing some of the production behind this and what's gone into it, the family aspect behind the scene. I mean, Richard O'Brien wrote the play and has a prominent role in it. You have Little Nell and Patricia Quinn as Columbia and Magenta. Like, very few of the actors are like unfamiliar with the, like, not intimately familiar with the source material. And you look at some of the, like you said earlier, some of the what could have been, and it just came to the studio offered more money, and the director was like, no, we're going to keep this, like, keep it in family kind of thing. And I think on one hand, I can see where they heard it at the box office. And
I think what you're saying is, like, given the limited appeal of the movie, it kind of gave it the legacy that it has. It's like if it was a wider appeal and is more successful, I don't think it would have been nearly as lasting in terms of, longevity of the movie.
Well, it makes it a cult classic. It's only like a small little cult of people really liked it in the beginning, and then it just transformed and blossomed into more of a mainstream thing, but still something almost untouchable, practically untouchable.
Right.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing where it goes beyond, like, it didn't make a lot of money in its first run, but it's taken on a life of its own, and it kind of put its feet in the ground and was like, yeah, we're going to do this. And it took off and became this thing. I mean, we're sitting here talking about it 45 years later. Even though, like, very few of the stars in it are really around Hollywood today. Just a sidebar on that, a couple of the interesting parts, because I was like, I tried to figure out, like, a where are they now kind of thing. And like I talked about Peter Hinwood, who played Rocky, and then Barry Bostwick. This
Spin City.
Spin City. Also, there was a couple of movies that he were like his top line on IMDb that killed me. FDR, American Badass, where he literally plays former President Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
That was just his nickname, American Badass.
2016. And
Get
then
that
also
badass
like a
blanket.
Christmas. There was a Christmas horror movie called Sleigh Bells that he's in.
With Goldberg?
What's that?
With Goldberg in it?
That's Santa's Sleigh that you're thinking
Okay.
of. Patricia Quinn was in Lords of Salem with Rob Zombie. Or what was Rob Zombie's movie, I should say. And it's just, I don't know. It seems like people are defined by this, except for Tim Curry, but then he transcends space and time. So what the fuck? So let's see. What do I have? I mean, this is a movie I think was a product of its time because it drops reference. I mean, so many references in the first song, science fiction double feature, about all of the old, sci-fi, horror, B-movie classics kind of thing. Literally name drops RKO Studios out of nowhere. And just cram so much in. But it's also one of those things where you don't have to know hardly any of those movies. Like, how many movies that they in the first song can anybody here honestly say they saw?
Well, there's The Day the Earth Stood Still, and I think that's one of the only ones.
I actually didn't really hear what he said.
I've not seen them all, but like,
sorry, I wasn't meaning to cut you off. I just didn't hear what
I've
he
not
said.
seen all of those movies, but like that opening song made me want to like watch them. So like that's why I watched some of them. I became familiar with them because I'm like, I want to see this.
Mm-hmm. Also, sidebar, Lucas, I think the first time I met you was at karaoke because you sang that song, and I was so excited. I was so excited that somebody fucking gave some love to this show.
Yeah,
at karaoke too. Like, who does that other than you?
At Grumpy Dave's, at like the most, like, I would say one of the least college bars in a college town.
Yeah.
And I was known for doing off the wall picks and shit in karaoke, so I'm like, I'll just do a little Rocky Horror, Time Warp, no, science fiction double feature. What the fuck?
I wish you had been there when somebody tried to do Sweet Transvestite and they failed horribly at it. It was the worst I've ever heard. It was even bad for karaoke. They had never, they have obviously never seen the movie because they didn't have any of the character. They were skipping over lyrics. I'm like, dude, I'm giving you a 5 out of 10 tops. That's generous.
That's like people doing My Way at karaoke. Like, if you can't nail that shit, get out there.
Right.
And very few can. I've never tried to sing that one live because I'm not going to try and be Tim Curry. I know my limits. I know my ceiling. So then I'll just sing science fiction and not just be in a weird range that just works. I don't know. But it's literally behind the curtain, literally how I think Chase and I met all those years ago, all of like 5 years or whatever.
I think that night I sang Chef's Chocolate Salty Balls from South Park. I was like keeping up the theme of songs you don't usually hear at karaoke. We had to keep it weird.
Okay, but that's a jump to go from rock horror to South Park.
It's not much of a jump.
Much.
Okay, but then what you have to say is the time. This is where we're off topic, so sorry.
Oh, we're still kind of on topic.
Yeah,
we're not that far
we
off
also,
topic yet.
once upon a time, Chase, you and I did Kick Poo from Tenacious D and Kick of Destiny.
That was one of my favorite karaoke memories, actually. Because you were playing all three characters. You played Meatloaf. I think you played Dio, and you played what was the other one? Was there 3 other characters other than Jack Black in that song? Or just
no, I think it's just Meatloaf and Dio.
Yeah.
Probably thinking of Satan.
Yeah. I'm thinking of Beelzebub. Freaking love that.
But we should do that one.
Yeah.
After COVID, that needs to be a thing. That was one of my...
That movie kind of pairs pretty well, actually, with Rocky Horror. If you were watch those back to back, give somebody a nice musical double feature, not a science fiction double feature, mind you. See how I brought that around? Best host ever, host with most. Like Beetlejuice up in this pitch.
Oh, don't flatter yourself. Oh boy. So let's see. I'm not even sure what to ask. I'm like all over the joint. It's fine.
Using that paper for rolling doobies, Lucas.
I have chronic notes. I've not handwritten notes since I was in college.
You have a chronic absence of thought. Sorry. That was good. That was good.
I don't even smoke. What the fuck, dude?
It's the claw getting to him. Whatever his choice drink is.
It's the claw.
Clown.
We're not usually this disorganized, Amber. I swear to God.
Yes. we are.
What's your favorite part
hold
about
on.
doing the
Don't-
stage production of the Rocky Horror when you are able to?
So we do like an 8 o'clock performance and we do a midnight performance. In the midnight performance, in between the performances, we have like a little for a specially priced ticket. We have a little like VIP moment where like if you bought the ticket, you can come back with the cast. And we have like a little cast party and drinks are poured. So like the midnight show, not only is the audience more rowdy, but I feel like we are as well. And it's like more of that like super like that raw and that like Rocky Horror like brings out. And it's like if you watch find a past like production of it, like I mean I can always send you something and show you, but if you watch the midnight show you can definitely tell a difference. So that's my favorite part, is our midnight performance is just having more fun.
Yeah, you probably also feel like you did a whole warm-up since you did a whole show already before, and you're like, yeah, I'm not going to do that this time, but who cares anyway? Probably.
What's everybody's earliest memory of watching this movie? Because I don't think any of us were actually around when it came out, right? We all saw it probably as kids.
Right. No, it was. I was a child. It was Trick or Treat. Like I remember, because like they would always show it like on VH1 or MTV, and I remember like being in middle school and like after all the younger cousins came back from it, it was on and we were watching it, and then my dad coming out and being like, "Oh, Rocky Horror, I love this," and then he's like, "Wait, probably shouldn't be watching this."
It's like one of those parental choice moments, like the right choice, the wrong choice.
Are they old enough yet?
We got to the end of Time Warp, and then like the beginning when Tim Curry's come down the elevator, Sweet Transvestite comes out, and then all of a sudden it was like, let's watch something else, and I'm like, what?
It's just getting good.
You just got to the good part, man. One of
I
the
know,
best, like
look at them pretty cute.
like you got one of the best like villain entrance songs of all time in Sweet Transvestite, which is just.
I don't know. Would you guys call Frankenfurter a villain in this movie? Because I was kind of torn by that. I wouldn't say they were a villain. They were kind of their own person. I mean, they did keep Brad and Janet there against their will, so maybe that's villainous. Villainous.
I feel like Frankenfurter is a misunderstood hero. Like Frankenfurter's intentions weren't to be a villain, but then kind of got a little like caught up in the moment and got a little carried away, and then that caused Riff and Magenta to kind of be the villains in the end.
Yeah.
I would say it's like they always say, there's a force of conflict within any given story or plot line. I would say that this is almost like man versus chaos. Like Frankenfurter's chaos. He's just doing his thing, and
All over the place, we might add.
Brad and Janet just get caught up at the wrong place, wrong time, and have to basically just deal with the situation they're in.
I feel like Frankenfurter was like a musical theater major who really loved their work. Like there was the costuming, the choreography. They had big aspirations. Like in Rose Tint My World, it was everything. It was this musical theater's big dream.
Yeah, very true. Because like in Rose Tint My World, Frankenfurter even does the whole like I'm gonna give you guys all this part, but of course I'm gonna come out and steal the show.
It's like the showstopper moment.
Like when Fan of the Opera was like, I wrote this play, and yes, I'm going to be in it too.
Director, star, producer, editor, photographer.
Critic.
Yes.